people on now.
All right, nine is almost a million.
Naftali, hold the chumash.
I was about to say that. I'm holding a chumash.
Okay. Without Rashi, just the chumash without Rashi.
Yeah. What's the point? What? That's fine. Okay, so we're up to 5 lines down from the top. Nun Aleph and Bet Aleph. So the Gemara says we got a few stories here, which after yesterday's daf is pretty good. Rami Bar Chama, so the host of Rami Bar Chama, Zavin Chamra B'tah. So he sold wine, and he made a mistake. He just he undercharged. So meaning he was ripped off. I remember we said when this is coming up from the next Mishnah, Aina is both ways. The seller could be ripped off if he undercharges, and the buyer could be ripped off if he pays too much. So Ashkechay Dava Atzav. So he came and he saw him. He was very sad because he undercharged. Amalei Amayatzivas. Why you sad? Amalei Zvini Chamra B'Toi. I sold wine and I made a mistake in how much I charged. Amalei Zil Hadabach. So he said, so go and give it back, meaning back out of the sale. Amalei. So he said back to him, my statute of limitations is up. I already waited long enough time to show it to another businessman or to my relative. You can't lose and then you don't lose your deal. So that expired. The Shadr L'Kmed Rav Nachman, he sent him in front of Rav Nachman, Amarlei Lo Shanu Ela Lekeach. This din, which we saw in the bottom of yesterday's daf, this din that for Aina you have a statute of limitations. That's only for a purchaser. Of a meicher loylam chayzer, but a meicher could go back on the sale forever. So if even 10 years later a seller sees that he was ripped off, he going through his books and he sees he undercharged, he's allowed to take back the whole thing. So what's the svara for this? My timer. Why is he allowed to do that? Like keach mekchabiyade. So what he purchased is always in his hand. And like anybody does when they buy something new, they show it off. So wherever they go, they show it off. And they tell him whether he made a mistake or he didn't make a mistake. Meaning when you show it to your friend, so they'll tell you if he made a mistake, which is interesting because we paskin in the Gemara and Ksubas that kalanova chasuda, that once the purchase is done, you're not supposed to tell him. But it could be that that's talking about the beauty of the thing that he bought. But maybe that he overpaid, maybe that you do tell him for the tayelis, maybe, right? But Meicher, so that's like chaos. So therefore, he has a limited amount of time. So because he's busy showing it off anyways. But Meicher, the seller's not holding on to anything. So Adam is Rameli's vinte kisvinte until he comes across something for sale that he sold himself. And he knows whether he made a mistake or didn't make a mistake. Lamashal on eBay, those guys that put up items on eBay. So how do you know how much to charge or how much to potentially get? You go check the history of the auctions and you see how much people were charging, right? And then you know how much to charge. But if a guy sold it without looking at that, and then he goes and checks into it and finds out that he was stupid and he undercharged, so then that's when he finds out. So therefore, that's the svara for Reb Nachman. Then the Gemara says 2 more stories, which seemingly say the same din. So it was a guy who was selling silk. He was selling silk pieces of silk. Kari shisa b'shavi chamisha. He was calling out, like any good salesman, he was calling out that he wanted to charge 6, but it was really only worth 5, which means that's more than a 6th, and he was looking to rip people off. And people realized that, let's say they would give him 5.5, have a shekel, he would have taken it, right? Like any sales guy, you ask for a little bit more, and then the guy bargains you down. You meet him halfway. He would have taken 5.5, which is still overpaying, right, by a half a seller. Also, who gavra va'amar, and then this guy came. Right, this is a real yeshiva guy svara. Also, who gavra va'amar, and then the guy came and said, if I give him 5.5, I have a mechila. Then that would be a mechila because it's less than a sixth, and I'd be stuck paying him that extra half. Eten leishisa. So what I'm going to do is I'll give him 6. I'll give him his asking price. It's ladina, and I'll bring him to Bezdin, and I'm going to win because he's charging too much. Right? Very smart move from this guy. Also, look, the Ravi came from the Rabbi. That din is only when you're going to, meaning that you can ask the din, that you could ask the seller for a refund, is with the lekeach manataga. That's only if you take it from a guy who does, from a businessman. Right? But if you take it from a balabayas, a balabayas does not have a which is a big chiddush, and this just gives a little picture into the whole how complicated this whole business of trying to prove aina is, because a balabayas doesn't have aina. Because the Gemara is going to say later, what's the difference? So the Gemara is going to say later.
That's not what's the difference.
What'd you say?
What do you call a balabayas? What do you call? Is somebody who sells on Etsy because he makes the things himself a balabas or a businessman?
A balabas, he learns daf yomi. If he learns daf yomi, then well, I don't know how you define. Nowadays, it became very vague, right?
Yeah.
You're right. If I would think the nafkamina would be
Rashi says the pshat is just like his masna. So maybe anybody where you have that maybe that's.
Well, I would look at it more. I was thinking that it's more like I hear, but I was looking more like if you make a, what do you call those sales when you want a tag sale, or when you want to clear out your garage?
Yard sale.
A yard sale. So if you're making a yard sale, so you're selling all this sentimental stuff, right? So then you're entitled to charge more because you have there's sentimental value there, and you don't want to lose it.
It's not comparable to anything. There's no price. Nobody else is selling what you are selling.
Well, I'm sure that there's a market for everything, though.
But there's no set market price.
I'm saying you go on eBay and check the set market price. Can you do that? Or maybe that's what that's good for this point.
Aaron, no one ever sold a used lawn chair before, or no one ever sold a desk that's been in your house for 37 years?
They never sold your used lawn chair where you saw 3 different perfect games from that lawn chair on your radio. Nobody ever sold that lawn chair before.
You're right. That's the point. That's why there's no aina.
So that's
there is a set price for
a used.
But technically, there's a set price for a used lawn chair. But no one sold yours, so there's no aina.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
But that is what the Gemara is saying. You can't charge enough for that because your used lawn chair that you watched 3 perfect games on the radio, which is an interesting chiddush, right?
By the way, are you selling that, Aaron?
That's not my line, Yaakov. That is, it's a George Vesey line. I saw it on the radio. It's such a line. It's such a gavaldic line.
Yes, This store is missing out on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so but that's a goof for the point. It has sentimental values. Therefore, you can't be accused of overcharging. That's exactly that's the Gemara's case. The Gemara brings another case. There was a guy who was selling what do we call tipi earrings, kari shisin b'shavi chamshin. So he was announcing that he was selling it for 60 zuz, but it was really only worth 50. So again, he was overcharging. But if you give him 55, have a shekel, he would have taken it. Also, if I would give him 55, I'll be mechila. He would be Michael, meaning there would be a mechila, and meaning I would be Michael, and therefore I wouldn't be able to get the money back. So I'll give him 60, and then I'll bring him to Bezdin, and then I'll win because he's overcharging, and that's it. Also, Rav Chisti came from Rav Chisti. This is only where he took it from the Tagar. There's no Aina. Damali Rabdimi Yasher, which this Vaparat, he likes that word from Brachas. Shas changed it to Yasher.
Yasher.
It's true. Yes, the Shas changes it to Yi. Yeah, that is the correct thing. So Gemara asks, but we're going to learn in the next Gemara, in the next Mishnah, the same way there's Ainot to a Hedyot, assuming meaning a minor, meaning not a minor, meaning somebody who's a novice, right? Not a balabas, not a businessman. Man Hedyot la balabais isn't a Hedyot balabais. So you see that the Mishnah says that there is Ainot to a balabais. Amar Chista bitsadriyosa. That's talking about junky clothing. So Mamela, it's junky clothing. So if he's selling junky clothing from his yard sale, so that we don't expect him to charge too much money for because it doesn't really mean much. Amamani.
Is that the same as the Yiddish word?
What's the Yiddish word? The Dreita? I don't know. I don't know. It's not the right same context, but yeah. Avamani tashmishte, but clothing that he used for his work, right? His what do you call it? His favorite bowling shoes or his bowling socks or whatever it is. So those, the Akira, that's chashuv to him. Lo mazvin lo, he can't sell them. Unless it's a lot more money. So therefore, there's no aina. So of course, the Gershon, you can't make it up. Two aina shilas yesterday. Okay. Well, this one is mamish. This gemara kimat. A guy says he's moving. He's moving, and he hired a mover, and he videoed him. He sent him a video of all the furniture that's going to have to be moved. And the guy gave him a quote, and then
names have been changed to save identity.
That's right, correct. And then the mover came, it's moving it, this and that, and he says, "I'm sorry, I miscalculated. This mama's just gemara." He said, "I miscalculated, and I have to charge you a lot more." Right? So, was this guy? Does he have to pay him? Maybe he's over on. No, again, this is services; it's not for goods, so it's a whole different ballgame, right? But does the guy have a right to back out if he realizes that 1 second, Taka made a mistake and I undercharged? So, yeah, so he's a worker. It's his business. It wasn't a private guy. You see, there could be a nafkamina between it. So, of course, even while learning the sugya, I still don't know the answer to that. So maybe that's why. And another guy bought a box of matzahs from, I don't know, he didn't tell me which grocery store, and they all came broken.
Very common Shiloh.
There you go. You deal with this daily, probably.
No, I haven't dealt with it this year yet, but it will come after the first days when they said they opened up the box and they were all broken.
Right. Yeah. So now what? So the question is meaning you might say that, okay, we'll give you the discounted price. I don't know. Maybe it's enough if broken matzah boxes are cheaper, which they are, than the whole matzah boxes, right? So can he back out? Can he not back out?
Is that a nutshell or is that like a mekachtos shayla?
Well, it's probably both. It's probably both. Meaning initially it could be a mekachtos, but if the guy tells him, okay, I'll refund it to you, and if not, it's no, it's probably more mekachtos. But you have to prove it. How can you prove that the guy himself didn't break the matzahs by when he was loading up his car and all? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Mishnah. There's aina on the buyer and there's aina on the seller. Like we just said, in the same way, there's aina to a novice. So there's also aina to a businessman. Rabbi Yehuda says that there's no aina for a businessman, which almost sounds like, okay, then who does have aina if not a businessman? All right, but we'll see that in the Gemara. So we had mentioned already. Whoever is the one that it's placed on him, meaning whoever is the one that got ripped off, right? Be it the buyer, be it the seller, he's got the upper hand. What does that mean? Ratza Aimaloi Tenli Mausi. If he wants, he could say, just give me back my money, meaning I want out of the whole deal. By Tenli Masha Nisini, or he could say, give me just I'll stay in the deal, but give me what I was ripped off. Right? Okay, so Manani, how do we know that there's enough from the buyer and the seller? The Tanabana, we sell something to your nation. Al Sainu. It says don't rip them off. Ainly other shitness Anna Lekeach. So that's talking about where the Lekeach got ripped off. Nisana Meicher. And how do you know that the Meicher could get ripped off? Tamalaymer Ikana Al Sainu. It says, or if you buy, you should not be ripped off. Meaning, when the kinda should not maybe you shouldn't rip off, right? Even the one buying shouldn't rip off the one that's selling. Fine. So why do you need both though? Maybe why can't you learn one out from the other? It's the lekech, it's the meicher. You have to write by lekech, you have to write by meicher. Because rachman meicher mishum de kim lebizvinte. So the seller, he knows exactly what he's selling, right? So, and if he raises the prices, so then he's knowingly ripping somebody off. Or does the lekeach know? The lekeach has no idea how much the seller paid and what was his cost basis and all that type of stuff. So Amaloi, so I think Amaloi Azri Rahman, but so maybe the Torah didn't warn him, meaning you're not supposed to, you try and look for your best deal. How are you supposed to know what's going on with a seller? So that's why you needed the pasuk. Because when a lekeach mushum the kakani, the Amri Inchi Zavnis Konis. People say once you bought it, you got what you thought. There's a phrase for that. No, you took it, and what's the phrase?
You break it, you bought it, or let the buyer
something like that. Right, something like that. Right, you bought it, and that's what it says. You open it, you bought it, those type of things, right? Have a meichad of who they come over, but the seller, he's actually losing. He's not gaining anything. I mean, he's gaining money, but a seller is always said when he sells. That's a Gemara. Where's that Gemara? I don't remember. Somewhere. The Amri Inchi Zavin Ovid. People say if you sold, you lost. So Ema Loyaze Rahmana B'Laisana. So maybe since the guy's already losing because a seller is really considered a loser.
What does that mean?
Because I think the way I understand
Walmart started with a 5 and dime store and a pickup truck, and the family's worth $75 billion. So what did he lose in the 50 years?
No, but it seems like the psychology of a seller is always, did I get the good price or not? Could I have raised it by a nickel?
That's guys who like to aggravate themselves, yeah. Meanwhile, the guy has a house and has an Ocean Parkway, and he has a mansion in Deal, and his family drives. They have a total of $6 million worth of cars. So
Yeah, I don't know the psychology of it, but there's a Gemara somewhere that says that a seller is always sad. No, it's a Gemara somewhere.
I don't know.
Nobody out there knows. There's a Ksubis. We had a Ksubis.
Yeah, I don't know where, but it's not
right? There's a Gemara.
Yeah, there's a Gemara.
Yeah, maybe it's in the end of Metzia. Could be. I don't know. Either way, but the seller.
Right here.
What?
Maybe it's in the middle of Metzia right here.
No. There's a Gemara that says beferish that a seller says gets sad. Anyways, so maybe you would say that Torah had Rahmanas on him. So since he's sad because he's selling things, so therefore we can let him rip people off. So tzricha, that's all you need, both psukim. Fine. Yehuda Eina no l'tager. Yehuda says that there's no Eina to a tager, to a businessman. So Gemara says, ask Mishum Shu Tager Eina because he's a businessman, he doesn't have Eina. So we're not talking about a regular businessman. A regular businessman, and again, this is another reason why you can't learn just Mishnayos, right? Because it sounds like any businessman. So the Mishnah is telling you no. It's talking about a broker, a safsa, or a reseller, I think that's the way you would call it nowadays, my timer. Made the Yod Vintage Kamashavia, because he knows exactly how much it's worth. Right? And well, I'm sorry, I should have explained. When the Gemara means that there's no Aina to a Tagar, doesn't mean that if he rips somebody off, he's liable for it. That's not, we're talking about if he gets ripped off, there's no Aina. Right?
Because he's supposed to know better.
Exactly. We're gonna have a machlokes right now, but that's what the Gemara.
Punished because he's stupid.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
yeah, that's what it is. Don't go into a business if you don't understand the business.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So I'm sorry. I don't know. I should have explained that earlier. It's not that there's no. If a salesman or a store rips somebody else off, of course there's I know. The question is if he gets ripped off and he undercharges, can you go after him? So we're saying that a regular store owner you can, but a reseller or a broker, a guy who's a wheel and dealer, so there's no such thing as ripping him off. Why? Because he knows the prices. But if for whatever reason he decided that he's going to put it on sale, and why is he selling it for this? Because he's going to make another sale. So right now he changed his mind. He says, "Oh, I shouldn't have sold it for that cheap." I mean, David, can we call this a loss leader? Isn't that what we call? Isn't this what we call a loss leader?
A conscious decision to not make it. It's also selling something that sometimes something's almost expired, so you sell it for cheap because you want to move it quickly.
Right. So even though selling it cheap, so it could be because it's expired. Taka, the worth goes down.
No, I'm not saying it's expired. It's going to expire.
No, I'm saying even if it's going to expire, some of the price comes down. But if you do a loss leader or something that's not like that, so the store owner is consciously dropping the price below even his cost. So it could very well be that he's being Michael the Aina, but it's worth it for him because he's gonna, once he suckers you into the store, he's gonna rip you off on the other things or whatever. He's going to
correct make money on the other items.
So that's exactly this Gemara sounds exactly like that's exactly what this Gemara is saying. I think. Right? But then after that he says, "Oh shoot, we dropped the price too low. That was a mistake." So now he wants to get out of it. So then we say, "I'm sorry, you can't do that." That is the first way. The second way to understand Rav Ashi Yomer really says the opposite. My ain l'tagarina. When it says a tagar doesn't have enough, ain't up a Torah, so he's not in the whole Torah of Aina. Shafilu pachas v'gedei Aina chayzer, meaning that even if he got ripped off, meaning he charged even less than what normally Aina would be, it still goes back. Meaning this is mamish the other way. This is that he is not. He's not in the whole parsha of the Aina business at all, right? Why? Because since he's a buyer and a seller, this is what he does. He buys. He tries to buy low and sell high. Sometimes he makes mistakes. So since that's his business, we let him take it back. So we have like the first shot. Because since he's a baki, he should have known better. Fine. Next, Gemara. So we said that whoever's the one that got ripped off, it's his call, right? He gets to call the coin toss, right? And which way it's gonna go. So money must listen. So who's the mission? The Loi Reb Nassim, the Loi Reb Yehuda Nasi. It's not Reb Nassim, not Reb Yehuda Nasi that we had in yesterday's Gemara. Right, because Reb Nassim, if it's Reb Nassim, Masnisim Katani Ratza, in the Mishnah it says Ratza. If he wants, then he could go back. If not, not. Ubraisa like Katani Ratza, but the Braisa doesn't say Ratza. Right? It means there's no choice. The Braisa is saying he doesn't have a choice. The whole thing gets knocked out. And Reb Yehuda Nasi, and if it's Reb Yehuda Nasi, Masnisim Katani Lekeach. The Mishnah says talking about Lekeach, Braisa Katani Meicher. And the Bryce is talking about a moicher, meaning who has the upper hand. So it's a stira. So Rabbi Lazar, I know zu any of them mishana. Taka, I don't know who said this Mishnah about I know, because it doesn't fit to Reb Nosson, it doesn't fit Yehuda Nosson. Rabba Amar Lo'ilam Reb Nosson. Rabba says it's really Reb Nosson. But Tani Nami bebraisa rotza, and put into the brisa the word rotza. Right, and then it fits. Rabba Amar Lo'ilam Reb Yehuda Nossi. He says it's really Reb Yehuda Nossi. Might the shai Reb Masnisin, and what was left out of the Mishnah come a farish bebraisa, meaning the brisa is coming to explain the Mishnah. It says whether we're talking about the lekeach or whether we're talking about the moicher, and then it just explains the lekeach. So we hear from this that he just left out the moicher part. And that's what it's teaching us. Meaning, so basically we have a raya that there's no stira between the Mishnah and the brisa. The brisa is just coming to explain the Mishnah further. Fine. Then we get into Masna Mashakosat B'Torah. There's a whole sugya of, are you allowed to make a tanai against the mitzvah that it says in the Torah? Right? Meaning, can I tell a guy, I'm so desperate for this item, I'll pay you way more than I know, and I don't care about the I know? Or do you say, no, that's the Torah cares, an option, right? Or not. So itmar, right? Well, this way it's the seller. The seller saying, I'll give it to you, but you cannot complain that I'm ripping you off. Right? So he says Almanas. So Rav Amar Yesh Lo Yelav Eino. Rav says that he has Eino. The Shmuel Amar Ein Lo Yelav Eino. And Shmuel says there is no Eino. Right? So meaning Shmuel holds that you could make the tonight. And Rav holds you cannot go against what the Torah says. So Lema Rav Damakar Meir. I think I lost you.
Oh no!
Didn't lose you? I did. I didn't know what you asked about. I'm sorry.
So Shmuel says he can lend with ribbis.
L'chayra.
Yeah.
If you hold it, if you can do it, I know. I don't know for sure because each one is different. But yeah, he's saying it masna mashakos of the Torah. So yeah, that's what I would think. So let's see. So Leimer Rav Damakar Meir, Shmuel Damakar Yehuda. So let's say Rav is going like Reb Meir and Shmuel is like Reb Yehuda. The Tanya Amar Leisha Re'am Gedesh is Yamana Shein L'Chalai Sher Ksus Va'ina. All right. So if a guy says to a wife, I'll marry you, but I'm not feeding you, being with you, and I'm not clothing you, like, why not? She could say, okay, I'm fine. So I want to marry you anyways. So I raise the B'Kudesha, so Tanai bottle says the Kedushin works and the Tanai is no good. Divrei Rameir, that's Rameir. Let's sheet this Rameir. Yehuda Aimer B'Davar Sheb'Mammon and Tano Kayim. If Yehuda says that it's a Davar Sheb'Mammon, then the Tanai is Kayim, meaning 2 out of the 3, She'er and Ksus is Mammon. He's promising to feed her, at least in the old days. He's promising to feed her and he's promising to clothe her. So that's a mammon thing. So if she doesn't want the mammon, then fine. But Aina's personal. So she can't be machloek. Right? So you see it's a machlokes Tanaim. So l'chayr Rav and Shmuel is the same machlokes. Amalach Rav, I know Damar Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda. Rav said, I can even fit according to Rabbi Yehuda. Adkan lekom Rabbi Yehuda hasam el di yada v'kamachla. There, she knows and she's Michael. Meaning she knows that the Torah said she's entitled to She'er Ksus in Aina. If she chooses to be Michael, fine. Antama Beis. Aval Hacha, but here, Mi Yada the Machel. If a guy, you don't know you're getting ripped off. When you go in and you do the deal, and this guy rips you off, you have no idea that you're getting ripped off. Meaning he says to you, yeah, I'm on a Tanai. So, that should give you a warning. But Lamaisa, you have no idea if you're getting ripped off or not. Right, but Shmuel, I'm gonna know if you were Rameir. Shmuel says I can go even according to Rameir. I can like over Rameir also the Bade Ka'aka. But there by the marriage, for sure, if he's being Ikarit, right? But here by I know who says like the guy the guy he may have had a plan to rip you off, but he may not rip you off in the end. So it's a suffix. So Mamela, that's not considered Masna Mashikosa B'Torah. Right? Okay, so Amar Rav Anan, he says, L'didim Ifarshali Minei Demar Shmuel, to me it was explained what Shmuel is saying. What does this mean? If he says to his friend that I'm going to sell it to you, but you can't have any complaints, there's no because he said that you don't have on me. But if he says on the condition that there's no in this whole deal, then there is meaning in the first way, he's saying that it's personal between me and you. Okay, so if you're not interested in having if you don't want to have a din on Aina, fine. But if he says there's no concept of Aina, that you can't do. The Torah does say that there's something called Aina, and you can't just be to somebody who's doing business. Again, we said nice and means he's taking and giving. So he's doing business ba'amana with truth, meaning the guy who he's doing the business with, he trusts him. And he says, here's all my merchandise and you sell it and I trust you, whatever price you get, and you give it to me. And the other case is if somebody says to his friend, am I good?
No, you froze for a minute.
Oh yeah, when it switches from the one to the other. Yeah, okay, I'm good now. Yeah. Okay, so again, if he trusts the guy, and he says, "Do the business, and I trust you." Or he says to his friend on condition that there's no ina, there's no ina. The Rav Damar Anod Amri Hamani. So according to Rav, who says that he says it even according to Rabbi Yehuda, Hamani, who's the Tana? Meaning, if he says that everybody's going to agree that by Aina, and you can't skip it, meaning you can't get out of it. So then, who's the Tana here? Okay, so that's what it is. We have to say that the machlokes Samarim is the same exact thing as the machlokes Tanoim. Right? Like kasha, there's no kasha. Kan b'stam, kan b'mefarish. One is talking about stam, right? Where he didn't say anything to him. He just said, "Are you going to be Michael if there's Aina?" And kan b'mefarish, and here's talking about where he says he's going to do Aina. The Tanya b'medvar more b'stam. Now, when does this whole thing apply? That's by stam. About b'mefarish, but where he says straight out, well, like what? The seller tells the buyer, this thing that I'm selling to you for 200, I know it's only worth 100. I know it's worth half of what I'm charging you. And he says, but I'm selling to you and you can't have any complaints. There's no enough. And the lekeach says to the moicher, this that I'm buying for you from 100, I know that it's worth 200. You don't have enough. That's what we're saying. So if it's beferish that there's going to be ina, so then there's no ina because he told him straight to his face. But there's no ina. So then okay, there's no ina. But if it's stam, then there would be ina. Fine, turn around. Anois of anois and ba'amana. So now this gets into ribis. Right? I hope this is. Hope I can explain this right. So anois of anois and ba'amana. If somebody who is doing business trustworthy, he cannot calculate the bad product with the honest way of dealing with it, and v'sayafa b'shava and the yafa b'shava. So really, we should explain it first. Amana is where you just trust the guy, and the guy's going to do business for you, and he's going to give you the profits and finish. Whether he charges a lot, charges more than you expected, less than you expected, it's all the same. But shava is where you're giving it to him for an equal amount, right? And that's where basically you're giving it to him for a certain price, and if he ends up selling it for a higher price, he gets to keep the money. Right? Meaning the first way is only if all the money goes to the boss, and that's it. Whether it's losses or gains, don't make a difference. But shava means you give it to him a certain price. If he decides to raise the price, then that's fine. So now the Gemara is saying, if you have bad product and good product. So the bad product you can't get rid of. So you tell the guy, just hold on to it, and as you sell it, it's fine, right? But the good stuff, I'm giving you for this certain price. If you get a higher price, then it's yours. So don't do this. Why? Because it looks like rivers. Why does it look like rivers? Because basically you're letting the guy keep the product and keep the money. Meaning, you gave him two different deals. You gave him the regular deal where he sells it for you, and you get all the profits or the losses. And then you have the other deal, the better stuff, which is that you get where he sells it for a certain price, and if he makes more money, then he gets to keep it. So basically, by you telling him to hold on to all the money, you're essentially giving him a loan, right? Because he doesn't have to bring all this money back to you till much later. And in lieu of the loan, you're going to give him a little bit more money. So it looks like ribis. So don't do that. Either give both with amana or give both with shava. Then okay. And by the case of amana, and then you pay him by giving him the schar for carrying it, schar gomel, or the schar of the camel, schar pundik, the schar of the hotel, schar atmoy, ain't a noita, but his own schar he can't take. He already gave him his schar from his fees. Right? So Mamela, he's gonna pay, he could pay expenses. I guess that would be the way to say it. Right? Well, I don't know if he's a pay him, he's actually gonna subtract it. Meaning he went and he did all these sales for the guy. On his way back, he says, okay, I'm supposed to give you back $1,000, let's say, of what I'm supposed to earn for you, but I carried it, I schlepped it, I needed a hotel. So you subtract all that. He says you give him a full fee. Where do you have it? Where do you get this from? So Papa says it's true, but like we said before, but it's true. Yeah, it's talking about this junk clothing, hemp. The article title is hemp canvas, right? Rashi says canvas. The Yavi Arbalameya. What it is the way when hemp salespeople, basically what they did is that if you give him 100 pieces of hemp to sell, he gets to sell 4 of them. So that's where he gets his money from. I mean, the Gemara was asking that he gave him all this product. He says, so you're going to pay him from pay him from where? Right? It's the Balabas's money. So no, you could pay where, or subtract from payment because the guy's entitled to 4 pieces of hemp per every 100. Right? So therefore that's where his money will be coming from. Okay. We'll stop over there.
When do we start Motzei Shabbos?
Barach 9:05, hopefully.
It's Yaakov. I found the
Real
Gemara with
Hasidic
selling.
Shabarach.
Yeah. You found the Gemara with selling? Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it sounded familiar. It's a long time ago though. It's Brachos Daf Hey. So it's
Whoa.
it's
Really?
yeah, it says Hashem gave us a Torah. He's not sad like somebody who sells something is sad and the buyer is happy. Hashem gave us the Torah and he's happy. But
Wow.
I think it's a different case though. I think it's like if you had to sell it, like not to sold something stam, like you were forced to sell something.
You were forced to sell. I hear.
Like if you had to part with something, if you had to part with something and you were sad.
Okay, I hear. All right. Now explain. It does explain why I remember because it's Daf Hey, so it was right at the beginning. The episode I have a memory. All right, let's say it till him. Very good. Pay Gimel. Jimmy's Mala stuff for them. I don't know. Techros or Tishkoid El Kine Vechi Yamon Masanecha Nasurosh. Alam Chayurim Vasoid. We see also Tzvanecha Amru Lechuv and Akidim Megavi Lo Yizach Hashem Yisrael Loid Kino to Levi Achto. Allah Brisi Christ so Allah Adam Ishmael Yava Grim Klava Man Malik Precious and Yeshvitor Kam Ashun Neva Imam Israel and Elite Sela Sailum Comedian Kasisok Yava Menachal Kishan Ishvadu Vendora Idan Ladama she sent the Vemi Kair Vikazev Kazev Samuna Konisichema Asher Owen the Shalom is nice of them and she sent me Kagalgal Kakash Lifnei Ruach Kesh Devar York Lovatal Tarim came to the famous Tarech of Safasa Sevalim Malefnin and Kolmi Vakshim Khad and Yevoshi Bivolo Adair Vyakru Yevedu Yedukiat Hashem Chadene Levadecha Al Yoin Al Kol Haaretz Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasunu Basara V'Shivya Hainu Mei Vayom Vei Mei Basha Makom Yerachem Alayim Yetzim Etzar L'Racham Yafela L'Oira Mashiva L'Gula Ashtoba Agolov is Man Kariv and Aymar Amen. All right. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Have a good Shabbos. Thank you.
Okay.
Shabbos.
What do you get your Metzia?
What do you have a steering wheel on the? You have a steering wheel on the right side of the car, or you're in a passenger seat?
I'm in the passenger seat. Yes. Metzia Shem. Eventually, I hope to be able to know about Pet. I could do it while I drive, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos.